All right, folks, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered for Friday, December 14, 2018. The case out of Alabama where E.J. Bradford shot and killed by cops. Now the state attorney general has removed the black district attorney from the case. Wait till I explain to you why. Attorney Ben Crump, of course, the family attorney for E.J. Bradford's family, he will join us. Florida's Stand Your Ground law helped George Zimmerman get away with the murdering Trayvon Martin. Now the Florida Supreme Court is extending Stand Your Ground to the police? Okay, I can't wait to talk about that with our panel. Also, in Tennessee, the urging continues for the outgoing governor to grant clemency to Cyntoia Brown, who was 16 years old when she was sold into sex slavery and murdered her captor. Also, was the blue wave in the midterm election powered by a black wave? A black political action committee did a poll and they said absolutely. Also, earlier this week, Donald Trump announced a new initiative to help depressed urban and rural areas with these so-called opportunity zones. We'll talk with a pastor out of Baltimore who says this is a good thing. And also, we mourn the great Nancy Wilson, one of the greatest jazz singers of all time. She has died at the age of 81. We'll talk with a jazz historian and her manager and see some vintage footage of Nancy Wilson at work. Folks, it is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
E.J. Bradford was the good man with a gun at a mall in Hoover, Alabama over the Thanksgiving weekend. He had a registered weapon, and he was, of course, trying to trying to actually help people get out of the mall after a gunman shot two people. But then police burst in, shot Bradford dead, let the actual shooter get away. The shooter has since been captured. But now the local district attorney, who is black, has been removed from the case by the state attorney general, who was white. The Alabama attorney general, Steve Marshall, this is what he said. A local DA, Danny Carr, was seen in a picture posted on Facebook with a local activist who is protesting the death of E.J. Bradford. Now, on the screen, folks, you will see the photo on the left. That is the photo of the DA with the activist, whose name is Carlos Chaverst Jr. Here's the problem. The photo on the right is the state attorney general with the same activist. Okay, let me rewind that. The photo on the left is the DA with the activist. The state attorney general took the case from him because of the photo. The photo on the right is the same attorney general with the activist. Can you please explain to me what the hell is going on? Joining us right now is attorney Ben Crump. Joining us on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Ben, I'm just trying to understand. You take him off the case because of a photo, and there's a photo of you with the same activist?
Roland, there really isn't any reason at all to remove the first elected African-American district attorney from the case, other than they wanted to get him off the case. It's that simple. And so they were looking for any pretextual reason to do so. And it doesn't hold up when you consider Carlos is also at the victory party or a fundraiser for the attorney general, who is very conservative, who has been looking for a way to get this case removed from Jefferson County, which is one of the only predominantly African-American strongholds in the state of Alabama.
Okay, so Ben, again, okay, so he removes it. Just because of the photo?
That's it. Just because the photo. They tried to also say, Roland, that, well, the police officer had 20 active cases in Birmingham, Alabama, where Danny Carr, the new district attorney, was located. But in every case, you have officers who are going to have active cases pending. So again, that's no reason. We just think it's so unbelievable that they would do this, Roland. And so people are protesting. They're outraged by it. In fact, there's going to be a march on Montgomery led by Carlos and the activists, demanding that the case be given back to the people of Jefferson County right there in Birmingham, where they elected the DA. This is the reason they went to vote in such massive numbers, to have a district attorney who will be able to give due process of the law and equal justice to people who they know have never gotten due process in the state of Alabama.
All right, Ben Crump, I know you're actually at the airport. We certainly appreciate you joining us, giving us an update on the case. Thanks a lot.
Hey, we'll keep you informed, Roland. March on Montgomery. Maybe we can get you down.
Let me know the date. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
All right, folks. My panel right now is Dr. Ben Chavis, President and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, economist and President Emerita, Bennett College in North Carolina, and also Ryan Miner, Editor-in-Chief, A Minor Detail. Y'all, okay, to use the photo as the reason for taking the case from him, when there's a photo of the Attorney General with the same guy, that's weak as hell.
It's very weak.
This past week.
It's race. The reason why they don't want the case for a black DA, because they feel that the DA will give the black community justice. And I think that Ben Crump made an excellent point. That's why people went to the polls, to elect us in the criminal justice system, so it can be more equity, more balance, more inclusion and diversity. And now the state attorney general of Alabama is he's doing what, unfortunately, he's showing the race. He's playing the race card.
Ryan, you got to give me
it's
more
not the photo card. It's the race card.
You got to give me more than a photo.
I'm not always confident of what comes out of Alabama based on their past history. But what I will say that the activist has a photo with the state's attorney general. So I think that they need to apply it across the board standard. And the attorney general's office said that the district attorney who was trying the case had relationships with several of the activists, and that they used a certain they took a look at basically the prosecutor's guide and said that based on these potential conflicts, that's why that they had to remove him. Now, I'd like to understand what all district attorneys have and the conflicts that they have across the board. But if it's just based solely on a photo, then I certainly don't think that that's enough of a standard.
Well, look, if that was the case, then the attorney general has to remove himself.
Well,
precisely. Well, again, you had me laughing when you said you didn't trust anything that came out of Alabama. Reverend William Barber, of course, is looking at the South in particular because of the issues that come up in the South so regularly. We know full well that people were denied the right to vote, not only denied all kind of voter suppression. So to get this black attorney general is amazing and tremendous. And this is just the way that people snatch things back. It's wrong, but it's beyond wrong. In the social media age, everybody's taking pictures with everybody.
Okay, right. The number of pictures I've taken with people.
And you don't even know who they are half the time.
Right.
Someone comes up to you and says, can I get a selfie with you? So if taking a picture would... Well,
that's never happened to me.
Oh, well.
but also want to show this, I also want to show this here. Here we go to my iPad, please. And so let's see if we can go ahead and get this. Just double check the connection, please. Let's see if we can get this. And so this protester, Carlos Chavez, you see it now? Okay. All right, guys, check the connection, please. So he's been arrested twice now in 48 hours. This is on AL.com. He was taken into custody last night for charged with disorderly conduct, a misdemeanor for using a bullhorn in a subdivision. Authorities believe he and other protesters were en route to protest outside the home of Hoover City Councilman Derek Murphy. Other protesters were told they cannot use bullhorns in a subdivision. And so clearly, folks there also are not happy that they've stopped traffic. They have other forms of protest here. But I'm going to have, this is where, if you're the attorney general, you better give a better damn reason than just a photo.
You know, Roland, the thing that's so egregious about this, even the arrest of this activist, is that we know every black person, and hopefully some well-meaning whites as well, know that the killing of this man was just wrong. It was just wrong, and they're trying to get away with it. And the only thing that black folk have in their arsenal is protests. It's the only thing we have in our arsenal. And so to, first of all, suppress protests, try to disqualify the DA, arrest this guy twice in 48 hours, is really to say we do not want to be accountable. Dude is just dead, and that's just how it is. And that's not how it is. With Ben Crump on the case, you know that it's going to be more than just a slap on the wrist.
I'd like to explore how the state's attorney general said that these relationships could possibly preclude him from being fair and unbiased. Well, let's explore those relationships. Let's talk about that. Let's put that out front and explain how that would, I guess, infect the case and really have an honest discussion. And if I were the Attorney General of Alabama, I would hold the press conference and make the people of Alabama understand why I actively removed this district attorney, who is very well respected in the community.
Oh, so here we go to my iPad. This is a video of Shaverse last night being released from jail. I'm going to go back into it, play it here. So that's him asking his people, all right, time to go, let's go, as they were waiting for him to be released. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have the Birmingham Times is one of our major black newspapers, and they're on the case, and they also have revealed that that the discrimination from the point that the brother was killed in the mall, the attempted cover-up. You remember, they wouldn't even release the name of the police officer who did the shooting for several days, and would not even contact the family of the deceased to let the family of the deceased know what really happened. So I think that the actions of the Alabama Attorney General also need to be investigated. But here's the problem, Roland. We can't go to the United States Attorney General. We can't go to the United States Justice Department and ask them. So we are left to street protests. I think Juliana is right, that we're going to have to. But I think this should not just be a protest by brothers and sisters in Alabama. This needs to be a protest by 50 million African Americans across the United States. We all need to stand up and protest. And I can guarantee you, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, we're going to make this a big issue in all of our newspapers around the country.
All right, folks, let's talk about what's happening in Florida, of course. Just when you thought it couldn't be any harder to hold police accountable for shooting black men, the Florida Supreme Court made the state's Stand Your Ground law apply to cops as well as civilians. Now, it's going to be nearly impossible now to hold the police criminally responsible in shootings. Of course, this is where, of course, George Zimmerman used Stand Your Ground law to get away with killing Trayvon Martin. Again, let's go to our panel here. And so, look, we know the current law. I mean, huge protections for police. I'm just trying to figure out, how does the Stand Your Ground law apply to an officer when they already have the badge, the gun, all the...
They have every legal protection. They are less than 1% of them who kill black people, kill people, are ever held accountable. So this is, say, even at less than 1% will not be held accountable.
But there's a Supreme Court precedent that establishes if a law officer is fearful of their life, they can use lethal force. Applying to Stand Your Ground, Ben, I'm just trying.
They're doubling down.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, and I would say, you know, I'm from the South. I'm a North Carolina native, but Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, all these states are doubling down on voter suppression. They're doubling down on arming and giving police officers more ability to act out their prejudice, racially motivated attacks on our community. And I think that, Roland, I don't know if you saw this morning, the CDC issued a report about gun violence. The United States is on a steady incline. We're the most gun violent. There are more murders, there are more deaths attributed to gun violence by police officers and by civilians. And quite frankly, which shocked a lot of people, the highest suicide rate is among white males.
Ryan, again,
so this is a serious problem. So if the Florida is going
to... I really do not care that white men are killing themselves.
No, but the second statistic, the most who have been murdered are black males.
But the thing, the thing here, Ryan, that still is crazy that literally with this now, an officer can just say, "Oh yeah, I'm just trying to understand just the logic of applying a law that was for civilians. Now you're applying to law enforcement when they already have significant protections."
Their liberty, our liberty, is in their hands, literally. The police officer, and the facts of the case is, the young man had, it looks like it was like a BB gun, and he turned around, and they claimed that that they shot him. He was turning around. He had I think earbuds in, and the police officer was charged with manslaughter. And this case could potentially not go to trial now because of this state Supreme Court ruling. And I think that when you look at the stand your ground law, cops already stand their ground every single day.
Right.
How is this? How would giving an extra protection to law enforcement, and yet? What if that was a reverse case?
Well,
I think what you have here is you have individuals who, again, the problem is when you have a legal system, when you have a system where you are electing district attorneys and you're electing judges, and then if you are a district attorney or a judge, the most important endorsement you want is the police union.
Every time.
And that's what you want in every race.
This is as Ben said earlier, this is a doubling down. This is an attempt to justify murder because you know that they already, as you said, they have every protection that they need. All they want now is just to have a free pass. And so anytime a black person is shot, well, I was just standing my ground. We already get these cases of imagination. You think someone was threatening, somebody was walking up on you. They could be walking up on you for 100 feet away, but that's still seen as threatening. And so, you know, Sean King and some others are doing work around electing attorneys general and district attorneys to ensure that, because they have the discretion to bring a case or not. I mean, they may not bring a case, and so when we have more people of color in these positions, you have people who are likely to be more sensitive about bringing a case.
Ben?
Right, and I'm so pleased that New York just elected a sister.
Yes.
A strong sister as Attorney General, Tish James, and Minnesota elected Keith Ellison, Attorney General.
But also Aaron Ford in Nevada.
Absolutely. So the thing, though, is go back to Florida. Look who's on the Florida Supreme Court. How did they get there? Most of those people who are currently on the Florida Supreme Court do not represent the interests of the diversity of Florida. Florida is one of the most ethnic diverse states in the United States. But if you look at its judiciary, it is racially exclusive.
Folks, let's talk about Cyntoia Brown. Of course, she was 16 years old when she was convicted in 2006 for killing the man who kept her in sex slavery. She's now serving a sentence of 51 years in prison. Now, of course, we've been talking about this. Lots of pressure being applied to Bill Haslam, the governor of Tennessee, to grant her clemency today. The legislature, State Representative Rick Staples of Knoxville, Tennessee, spoke up on her behalf. This is what he had to say.
It's time for individuals that were elected by the citizens of Tennessee to do the right thing. To come together and understand we don't excuse the abusers and punish those who are abused. We do not excuse violence, but when a child has been fed violence, how do you expect for them to react when they're trying to save their lives? We fail as legislators, as leaders in the state of Tennessee by allowing a child to be taken into sex trafficking and to be abused both physically and mentally. But we can correct that now by giving her her freedom. She has gone on to show that she is tough, she is a survivor, and she's in remorse for the action that she's taken. Can we not come together and understand that this goes beyond any political party or political agenda? We just want to do the right thing and correct where we fail in representing and protecting this child and making sure that no other child, no other woman is caught up in something as violent, as disgraceful as what this young lady suffered. So let's come together. Let's recognize that those of us who are elected in the state of Tennessee as high as the governor's office and give this young lady her much well-deserved freedom, the freedom she lost when she was innocent as a young child. Thank you.
All right, folks, let's talk about what's happening in Wisconsin today. Governor Scott Walker signed bills that roll back early voting, cut the power of the incoming Democratic governor and the Democratic Attorney General. Now, Democrats and liberal advocacy groups are expected to sue in the next few days. It's important to note that until the Democrats won the governorship in the Attorney General's office, Republicans in the state legislature did not think those bills were needed. But as soon as Democrats won, they rushed them through this week. Interesting. Very interesting. Now, this is where I say about Governor Scott Walker, no respect for him whatsoever, because it's shameful, it's despicable, what he did by signing that. And then for him to say, well, the governor, attorney general is still going to have some powers. But the thing is, they slashed early voting. It has nothing to do with that. That is payback to the residents in that state, the citizens, because they chose to vote out him as governor and vote out other Republicans.
Scott Walker is a disgrace, and thank God that he dropped out of the presidential contest as soon as he did. And for the Republican Party, remember back in 2012 or 13 when Scott Walker was seen as the logical frontrunner to the White House? This man has always been an absolute disgrace to his office. This is nothing but sour grapes. And quite frankly, it's distressing to see if he would have tamed the White House, what he would have done to voters across the board. This is terrifying.
Well, I'm glad you're on this show. We need more former Republicans like you.
The thing about it, Ryan, is he didn't drop out. He was run out. I mean, it was not like he said, "Oh, gee." He was run out. He was polling terribly.
Yeah, he lost fair and square.
Because he basically has no integrity. Because he has attacked public sector unions. Because he has gone after people. You're right. He has no credibility. He is despicable, but beyond despicable, let's just not leave this on Scott Walker. It happened in North Carolina when a Democrat won the gubernatorial race there, and it's happened in other places. Republicans, I don't know what happened to the Republican Party.
They tried it in Michigan.
What you mean? What do you mean? It's called power. I mean, this is very simple. It's power. That's what they want to maintain. Power. They want to maintain control.
By whatever means necessary.
They don't care. They will use their power to do whatever they want as long as they have it.
Right, but the people have at the end of the day, it's the people power. And I think we want to salute those brothers and sisters in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in North Carolina that went to the polls in record numbers. So I think
now they should come out and recall every Republican who voted for it.
That's right.
Everyone.
So this is not over with. Freddie Douglass said it best. Freedom is a constant struggle. So, I mean, if you vote on Election Day, you got to keep voting after Election Day to hold these people accountable. And when the next term comes around, between now and 2020, we got a lot of work to do to get that vote out and not let voter suppression keep us down.
Let's talk about that vote, folks. Of course, everyone talks about the blue wave, but really it was also powered by a black wave. Adriana Shropshire is the executive director of Black PAC, a political action committee that has spent millions of dollars to engage black voters and train black community activists and leaders. Now, again, they then launched a poll. Cornell Belcher, his company, they actually led it to look at the results of the midterm election to break down exactly what took place and where strengths were and what were the issues. She joins us right now. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good to have you on the show. And so what does your poll reveal?
Well, I think it reveals, what we saw and what we knew going into the midterm elections. One is that we just had a significant surge. I mean, I've been saying since last year that this wave that people talked about that was going to come in 2018 actually began in 2017, and it's building and it is not trusting. And so we know that there was a significant number of folks who turned out to the polls, record numbers. In fact, we know that about 40% of black voters who showed up on Election Day in 2018 actually did not participate in 2014. So when we sort of went out and began talking to folks, and many of our partners as well, we knew that there was a significant part of our community that we needed to reach, that we needed to engage, that we needed to make sure that they understood what was at stake with this election, and make sure that they showed up. And they did in record numbers. We also know that people are deeply concerned about voter suppression, as you all were just talking about. I think that it is, the reality that a majority of people believe that voter suppression impacted the election. That's across the swing states where we did our poll. In Georgia, it is particularly true, where about 77% of black voters believe that the election was impacted by voter suppression. So real concerns around a whole range of issues, voter suppression being, top among them, but certainly this overall sort of impact of racism and discrimination that Black voters are very clearly saying is a top priority, is a top issue that any candidate who's coming into office needs to be prepared and have the courage to address.
Also, when you look at these various issues, they go beyond just a couple. And so what it's telling is that if you're a candidate, you better be speaking to a variety of interests for Black folks. You can't just come in and say Trump is bad. You can't come in and just talk about voter suppression. You better be talking about economics, education, other issues.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a range of issues. And, you know, when we did focus groups early on, and even some of the polling we did in the spring, what was very clear is that Black voters are, they understand who Trump is. They understand who the Republican Party is right now. They don't need to be convinced of the damage that they are doing to our democracy. What they want to know is, for progressive or Democratic candidates who are seeking office, they want to know what they're going to do. They want to know how they're going to act and how they are going to govern on critical issues. And among them are, you know, the economy, healthcare for sure, Medicaid, Social Security. Those were all really important issues for Black voters. There was also a range of what, you know, I would call social justice or racial justice issues that were also top priorities, equal to the kind of economic justice issues that folks talked about as being important. These racial justice issues were equally important. Certainly, again, voting rights was among them, but also just deep concerns around the rise in hate crimes. I mean, these are not things that are lost on our community. People are both paying attention, but they're also experiencing the increase in racism in their daily lives, and we've seen that in our past research as well.
And so, what is it? So, what do you think with this poll? What should candidates take away from who are preparing for 2020?
Sure. Well, I think you said in part that these issues, the sort of you know, issue agenda, what really needs to be centered in how candidates who are preparing for presidential runs in 2020 or preparing for U.S. Senate runs in 2020 really need to think about how they are moving these issues to the center of the platform that they talk about. These issues certainly, you know, are polled Black voters, but we also polled white voters as well. And one of the things that we know is that the issues that were most important to Black voters were also indicators for whether or not white voters chose Democratic candidates. So the issue of division and racism was an indicator for whether or not, if that was an important issue for a white voter, they chose a Democratic candidate as well. So it isn't just that these are issues that Black voters care about. These are broad issues that I think are cutting across racial demographics. And so those issues really need to be the center of any campaign. I think we also know that Black voters not only came out in record numbers, but they came out early. And so when candidates think about running, they have to get away from this idea that you can wait to talk to Black voters until the last minute. They have to engage Black voters early with this platform, with the set of issues that are meaningful and that will mobilize Black voters. But we know that about 64% of Black women turned out early, voted early, made up their mind that they were going to vote early and did so. So our community is turning out, as we know, using the opportunity of early vote where it exists. But we also know that younger voters are turning out earlier as well. So they really need to think about how they're engaging us, when they're engaging our community, and what they are talking to our communities about.
All right, then. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much, Ms. Shropshire. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Now, more shenanigans uncovered in North Carolina's 9th Congressional District. Tuesday, we learned that the man at the center of the election fraud may have had as many as 800 completed absentee ballots he did not turn in a timely manner. Now, on Wednesday, we learned that the in-person early voting count was improperly shared with certain people who were not election judges before Election Day. This is important because if you were cheating to win, it would help to know where you stood before Election Day. And today we learned that the Republican candidate, Mark Harris, may have specifically requested that his campaign hire the man accused of orchestrating all of these fraudulent activities. It's looking more and more like the State Board of Elections will order a new election. Two things to keep in mind. This is not voter fraud. This is election fraud. And no prominent members of the Republican congressional leadership have had anything to say about this. Not a single word, folks. This is just, oh, they love talking about fraud, fraud, fraud. But when it involves a Republican, it's amazing how they go quiet.
They're silent. It exposes the hypocrisy, the political hypocrisy. And I think that it also exposes that they were using fraud, talking about voter fraud, when in fact it was the systematic fraud of those in charge of elections. And I think that what North Carolina is exposing, I think it's the tip of the iceberg, Roland. I think that there will be a new election. And I'm hoping that blacks, Latinos, progressive whites will come out in record numbers in Bladen County, in Columbus County, and those in that congressional district where is that issue now. Because I think it's going to have implications for the rest of the state of North Carolina, as well as the rest of the country. I think now and the silence, all those people at the RNC that were talking about voter fraud, they're utterly silent now that they've been exposed in their own mirror.
Well, what are they going to say, Ben? I mean, what are they going to say? We cheated? I mean, the fact is that they did cheat. They don't have anything to say. This, as you said, this exposes their hypocrisy. It exposes the systematic ways that this has happened in the past. This isn't the first time that we've been to this rodeo. This is the first time that it's been exposed. And so my only fear, or not really fear, but my concern is that an untimely election, that's not, a special election, people don't tend to come out for special elections at the same numbers. So I'm hoping that voters will be so outraged by this stealing, that they're doubly motivated, if not triply motivated, to come out. Because this flies in the face of everything we know about fairness. But then again, I mean, at this point in time, we see Scott Walker, we see these other things. The way that Republicans have chosen to operate flies in the face of what we mean by democracy. Democracy cannot coexist with predatory capitalism. That's the bottom line.
Speaking as a former Republican turned very happy independent.
All right.
You're exact. The Republican Party doesn't care. Their entire party hinges upon hypocrisy. They ignore it, they blast it, and they just don't care. And Paul Ryan, if he had any gumption, would be down in North Carolina today and saying, this is wrong, what's happened here is wrong.
Oh, I mean the same Paul Ryan who's from Wisconsin, who said nothing about what happened in Wisconsin?
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha, okay, just making sure.
I'm
just checking, huh?
That would be a Christmas wish come true, but I hope that they have. You're right, I hope that they have a new election, because I think that is what the people should demand, and the Republican Party, you're right.
Should be called for. Should be called for.
You'd be more successful wishing for a Maserati than wishing for Paul Ryan to act like he has
Well, the
sense.
preacher who got the Maserati for his wife.
No, a Lamborghini.
Yeah, Lamborghini.
So, that was John Gray, the Lamborghini. But the bottom line is, Paul Ryan ain't going to do it. Barr's not going to do it. Tillis is not going to do it because they don't have the guts to do it, because you know what? Because they enjoy winning. And it's about power. All right, folks, here's a word from one of our partners. You want to write this website down, marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org, and I'll tell you why. As we transition to the holiday season, this is the time we start thinking about giving and sharing, and sometimes the best gift that you can give someone is an opportunity that could potentially change their lives. That's why the folks at Transatlantic Real Estate have an opportunity. They've created an investment opportunity for the everyday investor, which it involves legal marijuana and crowdfunding. Now, we all know that legal marijuana has created one of the fastest growing industries in the country, multi-billion-dollar industry. We also know that crowdfunding makes it easy to be an early investor of an opportunity. But it gets even better. Transatlantic Real Estate is different, and they have a business model that is simply to understand. They buy land that supports marijuana grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. Now, what that means is you would be investing in the landlord of a licensed marijuana farm in a high-growth market. You can invest as little as $300 up to $10,000 before the company goes public. Now, here's some more good news. They've extended their offer, which means you still have time if you take action now. Now, keep in mind, you must complete and confirm your application to participate, so be sure to complete the process. Don't spend all of your money over the holidays and end up with empty pockets. Instead, you can get a return on your investment. You can also consider making an investment for someone else. All you got to do is go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org for you to get in the game. All right, folks, President Donald Trump announced this week a new White House council to deal with the issue of opportunity zone. That's promoting economically depressed areas, okay? Now, Trump called the council a very big thing, limited vocabulary, folks, and said it would feature efforts across the entire federal government to deliver jobs, investment, and growth the communities that need it the most. Now, Ben Carson is Secretary of HUD. He's going to be heading up the council. Also speaking at the White House was Dr. Dante Hickman, senior pastor of the Southern Baptist Church in Baltimore, and I earlier talked to him about these opportunity zones. So Dr. Hickman, let's talk about these opportunity zones. First of all, these are not new. Enterprise zones go back to 1993, and so we've seen this really for the past 25 years. What makes this different?
What makes it different for me is that I'm different. I've been a pastor of Southern Baptist Church for 16 years, engaged in community